So, welcome to this third session of the Transformation Talks. I'm also happy to see you all here. I will be presenting today about what is food systems governance, why is it an opportunity, and how do you invest in it? In this presentation, I will get you up to speed on a few things. Firstly, the purpose of these transformation talks and how the third session fits into this series. Secondly, on what we have learned in previous two talks, because not everybody that is joining today will have joined the previous two sessions. So I will shortly summarize, especially the what of the title. So what is food systems governance? What is food systems transformation? And also a start towards what does it look like in South Sudan? The presentations then after me will focus more on the why and the how of what is food systems governance, why is it an opportunity, and how do you invest in it. So let's start with the goal of today's session. Let me click on the PowerPoint to change to the next slide. Okay, so the Transformation Talks is a series of 3 sessions, the purpose of which is to learn about topics that are key to transforming food systems and how it can be put into practical use. The 3 sessions are Discovery and Opportunity, Deep Dive, and Insights to Action. The purpose of these talks is to learn about topics that are key to transforming these food systems. And previously, we've had the diversity and opportunity session where together with participants, we discovered what food systems transformation and governance can mean in South Sudan and discussed if it is an opportunity. Then in the deep dive session, we looked at 3 cases, the same ones that are presenting today, actually, to dive deeper into what it means to work on food systems transitions and how that relates to governance of these transitions. So today we arrive at the 3rd session, From Insights to Action. And the purpose of our discussion today is learning about and working together to make the governance of food system transitions in South Sudan actionable for everybody. As said, we will learn about food systems transformation and governance, about practical cases, how they relate to transformations, and we will define how we can each contribute to the governance of food systems ourselves. So, to start off, I'd like to dive into the what, starting with what is food systems transformation? As you can see from some of these visuals on the screen, I copied the visuals from the earlier presentation of Professor Kees Lewis of Wageningen University. As you can see, you can visualize food systems in different ways. These 3 are visualizations from the high-level panel of experts from Wageningen University and from an academic publication that all have found different ways in which to show, how you can represent the theory of a food system. And as you can see, the thing that these representations have in common is that you can see that food systems are complex. Food systems are composed of farmers, there's companies, there's also technology, infrastructure, environments, policies, there's people's behavior, there's value chains, and much more. So food systems, they encompass the entire food chain, including policies and infrastructure, but also societal aspects like jobs that are being created and behavior that determines what people choose to grow, what people choose to eat. And it also includes environmental aspects like water resources, biodiversity, climate change, weather, etc. The purpose of including this all together in one framework is to develop strategic thinking about how you can create food systems that are sustainable environmentally, that create good socioeconomic outcomes like jobs and well-functioning markets, while also delivering food security all at the same time. And our thinking about these food systems needs to be strategic indeed, as sometimes these outcomes are actually in conflict with each other. For instance, when biodiversity is lessened to produce large amounts of food efficiently, or when we want food to be cheap and available, but also want farmers and agribusinesses to make a decent income. In South Sudan, a key thing that comes to mind is also the impact of humanitarian aid on the market. And these conflicting outcomes are what we call trade-offs. And food systems thinking is intended to minimize these trade-offs and to see where actually these systems can work together to create synergies, to create, beneficial outcomes that strengthen each other and build on each other. And food system thinking is also meant to make all of this more concrete and actionable, because of course it's a very complex topic, and it's easy if you focus on the complexity to get lost and wonder, what can we actually do with it? So first, we need to dive a little bit deeper into how this thinking is helpful to understand what we mean by a system a bit better. So we start with understanding what do we mean by a system. And a good example is a picture here that I also took from Professor Kees Lewis, a picture of the parts of a car and next to it the car put together. So in this metaphor, the car represents a system. And the question is, if we look at all these things apart from each other and try to work with them separately, do we get the same result as if we look at the car put together and try to work with that? This metaphor, it represents a little bit how we often do our work, separated from others. We work together with them, but also we work a lot in our own projects and work streams. We know we're also working in a system. We try to pay mind to how we relate to others, but often it's difficult to really consider everything, to which your own work relates. But if looking at the car, if you look at the whole of that system, the car put together, it produces something. There's movement, there's transportation, there's a working car. So all the parts without each other, they don't really produce anything. They are good parts. They would function, but all put together they produce something new. So the whole is actually more than the sum of these parts together. So if you translate this to systems talk, that's what's called an emergent property. So it means all these parts together, they produce a moving car. And this moving of the car, this use of the car is the emergent property. Just like all these different parts of the food systems together produce things like food security, food insecurity, jobs, pollution, poverty, wealth. So actually some of these emergent properties, things that are produced by all these different parts of the system when they work together, some of them are desirable, while others may not be so desirable. So the question then becomes, how can the system develop emergent properties that we desire, that are more desirable? Food security instead of food insecurity, sustainability instead of pollution, or loss of biodiversity. And this movement towards this desired future, this desired outcome, is what we call transforming food systems. We transform the system to behave in a different way, to produce different, better, emergent properties. And you can do that in two ways that actually should go together. You can try to choose. You can try to change the rules of the game. These are about how parts of the system work with each other. For instance, how policies and investments are supporting production for subsistence agriculture or maybe for the market. How another type of rule of the game is how currently, the development aid sector is organized in siloed interventions of humanitarian and development funding. You can do it in a different way, but it would mean different rules of the game. And thirdly, I'm trying to relate this to the cases of today. So how services in the food system now are often also delivered by the NGO sector, the UN, while they could also be delivered, for instance, through the agriculture ministry. And at the moment, the system is organized like that. Those are the kind of rules of the game. And actually, we can try to change that. We can transform those rules. But so the second part to trying to change these rules of the game is trying to change how actors are working together in the system, often by organizing better coordination, by organizing better alignment, making sure that everybody works towards the same goal, understands problems and solutions in the same way. Basically alignment. So that probably sounds very nice and theoretical, but how do you actually do it? How do you transform the behavior of food systems? I've put a visualization on the screen here that shows how it may work. Maybe it can help you understand it a little bit more in terms of the theory of this all. Of course, later on we go a little bit more into the practice with the cases, but here I have the task of serving to you the learning that we did about the theory. So if we look first at this image in the middle, in the green, we can see this represents the way that the food system currently operates. It's working, it's going in a certain direction, and the systems thinking, it calls the rules of the game a regime. We can say, the current rules of the game, or the way that the cards put together now produces the current state of the food system and the current outcomes. So that's the green part in the middle. At the bottom of the image, you can see different ways. It represents different ways in which people are trying to influence how the food system works. People are trying out different things. People have interventions that support farmers to start up businesses or to produce seeds locally. Or maybe, it could also be something else. It could be about trying to have humanitarian development, peace funding and interventions. People are trying out different things. And in systems terms, this is what they call niches. It's where experimentation, piloting happens, but also lobbying for change. Showing people, changing minds, showing that things can be done. So this is where people, together with others, are trying to influence the direction that this food system takes. And they may be effective or they may not be effective, but this is what they're trying. And then the third part that's important to look at to understand how this change of, changing the rules of the game of a food system works is at the top. And that is what we can call the trends. And these are quite important because these trends, they can either support or hinder the efforts that people are making to change this system. For instance, if, a quite disruptive trend would be war or a disaster, this will really impact anything that you can try to do. What influence, it will influence what opportunity you have to influence a food system in a certain direction. Probably not much will be possible in that case, but they can also help. For instance, if there's elections, I know there's elections coming up in South Sudan. These elections can also bring new policies, bring new investment, so that can be an opportunity to drive the food system in a certain direction. But it can also be other things like, maybe there was just a year of good weather and you had a good harvest. So that brings an opportunity to import less. And you can make use of that with your, intention to change the food system in a certain direction. So very simply, trying to move towards these more desired outcomes and trying to do that together. That is what we call food systems governance. So, we try to steer the food system in a certain direction together with others. So that's food systems governance, actually. And this together part of it is actually quite important, because when you think of it, who is governing the food system? Actually, maybe the first thing you think of is the government, but actually, there's so many actors involved in steering the food system in a certain direction that nobody really is in control of the governance of a food system, and at the same time, everybody is governing a food system. So, there's the government with certain policies and investments, but beyond the government, there's also all kinds of activities and investments and behavior. Like farmers, they produce certain crops. Processors, they try to start up certain businesses. There's traders who see certain opportunities, companies that bring in certain innovations, civil society that is trying to push a food system in a certain direction. Aid organizations, international donors, they're trying to invest in a certain way. The UN system trying to support all kinds of, policy creation, but also all these actors involved in humanitarian aid, all these actors, they're influencing the food system. And in that way, by investing in a certain way, are also governing the direction of the food system. So, there's nobody really in charge of the food system. And it's up to all these actors to create common visions about where you want the food system to head towards, to create these desired outcomes. It really is a task that is up to everybody. And actually, I put these last few actors, the aid organizations, etc., in bold, because I think it's important just to mention, especially in South Sudan, that you have this very large international aid presence, which is quite influential. And therefore also quite influential in governing the direction in which the food system develops. You only have to think of food and seed aid and how that impacts markets, for instance. But I feel because of this large presence of, semi-publicly funded actors, it also means you have a lot of opportunity to steer, because maybe more so than with companies, you can try to agree and steer the food system in a certain commonly desired direction. Maybe that's not entirely true. I think it will, I think it also goes for companies, but yeah, I think you get what I mean here. So to sum up, at the same time, no one and everyone governs the food system. But of course, there are some actors that have more influence than others. And this is why it's important after me to also hear from Mr. Agostino, for instance. So if everybody influences the direction of the food system, what can they then do to influence this transformation? What kind of niches, experiments can you create? In his presentation of the first transformation talks, you can actually review it online. Probably he tells it better than me. Professor Kees Lewis, his presentation was recorded. He identified 7 ways in which everybody can support food systems transformation processes, or maybe not support, but also try to create them. So the first one is to create and support variation. So that means, it's variation in terms of how things work. So it's about pilots, it's about innovation, experiments, trying out things to see if they work in a certain context. Secondly, it's about, another strategy that you can take is to capture and support existing diversity. That's what he calls it. So that means maybe it's a little bit what I'm trying to do by show you a number of cases. You find what seems to be moving in a certain direction, what seems to be working quite well, and you try to support that. And then, as a third one, you could also think about the temporary protection of niche initiatives. So it's, I think if you simplify it, it's about creating safe spaces. So maybe there's an innovative company, or that needs to have subsidies before they can fully develop their business model. This is a little bit what that means. Fourthly, it's about analysis of landscape trends and visioning. So that's about trying to have people understand that there are opportunities, or that there's problems that we can move in a certain direction. It's creating a vision, a visioning exercise for people to see where are we now and where can we move. The fifth one is to create pressures at the landscape level. So you remember the trends that I was just talking to in that image. And what you should think about here is, for instance, to work on lobby and advocacy, or to introduce new policies that kind of try to shape the enabling environment in which the rest of the food system tries to do its work. The sixth one is about finding plausible leverage points. So it's about seeing if you can find it's a leverage point when it's an opportunity to have a big impact, often by doing something small. Removing a tax, for instance, can have quite a large impact. It sounds, well, maybe it doesn't sound so small, but finding something that you can change, which then creates a whole new dynamic in the system by that one thing that you try to do. And then lastly, it's about building discourse coalitions. It's about agenda setting, a coalition building. I don't know if we if we today all agree on a certain vision for the South Sudanese food system, we are building a little bit this discourse coalition. We're trying to we then create a mindset to all move in the same direction. These are the strategies that Kees Lewis presented, and I think it's a good way to see how your own work can relate to one of these 7 strategies, to see, okay, actually systems change, strategies, it sounds complicated, but it's not so different from some of the things that I'm already doing. And maybe, if you can see it in relation to food systems transformation in that way, it can also help you to see more opportunities to have bigger impacts. So today, we will be actually looking at 3 cases relating to 3 transformations, 3 transformations that they want to bring to the food system. All of these transitions, as you can also call them, they include a transition that the initiative wants to see happen, to see the desired food system outcome happen, what you can also call an emergent property. For instance, to see, as the first one says, to see a food system that allows local markets to create self-sufficiency in food production, enhancing farmers' incomes, eliminating the reliance on imports and seed aids. The transition that they're trying to create is transitioning from a system that currently results in much food aid and subsistence-based production towards a system that operates more along market principles. Of course, you will hear more about this later. Secondly, the second case is about trying to build, the desired outcome is trying to build resilient food systems that deliver food security to communities despite shocks that happen occasionally, and also decrease and eliminate the reliance on humanitarian aid, while at the same time bringing in development actors. So the transition they're trying to support here is to, they want to achieve these resilient food systems, and the transition that needs to happen is to not only have humanitarian aid logics operating in certain areas, but also to bring in the development actors to work on markets, to work on value chains, to work on business opportunities, etc. And finally, there's this, there's the third case where the aim, the desired situation is that the agriculture ministry has the means to deliver services based on community needs and that they're supporting self-sufficiency in production, decreasing reliance on humanitarian aid. So let's say the transition that needs to happen to achieve this is to move from service delivery by partners to service delivery by government. And one way you can do that is to prioritize actually service delivery spending sectors like food security and WASH. So the reason why it's interesting to kind of show both the desired outcome, so the emergent outcomes that you would like to see happen in the food system as a result of how the rules are shaping the food system, and also to describe this transition, is because I feel like many people in the room can relate to I think probably they can support the outcomes that are there. And at the same time, they can think about, okay, if there's this transition that is related and maybe needs to happen for that outcome to be realized, I can relate my own work to this transition that kind of needs to happen to reach that desired outcome. So I hope it helps you reflect a little bit on how you yourself relate to the transition. But of course, in the cases you'll hear more about this. So to end my presentation on the what of food systems transition and governance, what is it? Before we move on to why is it an opportunity and how can we invest in it, I'll summarize a few things that I just told you because I realize it's a lot of information. So food systems, they are complex. And as I just told you, no one actor really is on control. Nobody governs the food system at the same time. Everybody governs the food system. But of course, some have more impact on the rules of the game and how it operates than others. But the transformation of food systems, these transitions, they try to change the rules of the game. So they try to change how the system operates to see different results happening from everybody interacting with each other, all these different parts resulting in something bigger. And food systems governance is trying to steer that change, steer that transformation together with others. So aligning, coordinating, agreeing on where we need to go, showing what is possible. And as you saw from the image about the niches and the trends and the food system regime or the rules of the game, this transformation happens through initiatives that try to change things, that start small and kind of mature over time, have more impact over time as they interact with the system. And this is a process where they try to interact with the system, try to create change to a certain point where this kind of experimentation, this piloting, these new policies that are being introduced, change the rules of the game so much that actually there now is a new way in which things are being done, a more desirable way. And they are supported or hindered by the wider trends that serve as pressures or opportunities, at a higher level. So finally, I think it's good to mention that in these transitions, there will always be actors that are resisting the change as well, either because they think, transition should be going in a different direction. I think that's fair. Opinions differ, or because they are actually benefiting from how things are organized at the moment. And they may lose out if things are organized in a different way. And I say this to emphasize that food systems transition and governance really is a collective effort. It needs to work on awareness raising, on mindset changes, and a lot of dialogue. And these types of efforts need to complement the more technical work, which of course is excellent, that is being done. Because, otherwise you will hardly see the system start to behave in a different way to produce the outcomes that actually we all desire. Yeah, so that's it for me now. Thank you, and I think there will be an opportunity later to ask some questions about this. Thank you.